Hello, first graders! Hopefully you have your writing paper ready to go. Make sure you're sitting up nice and straight. You have your stomach touching your desk and your back is touching the back of your chair. Don't forget to hold your paper straight so that it doesn't move around. And you want to be in ready position, ready to write the first sound. The first sound is ah, ah. Say it with me. Ah, ah. Remember we start at 2 o'clock. You want to go around the clock, back up to 2 o'clock, and straight down with a tiny little tent. Double check that the top of your letter does not go over the dotted line and the bottom of your letter does not go below the bottom line. If it does, that's okay. Just cross it out and try again. That's what we're practicing today. We're just crossing them out and trying them again. Ah, ah. Notice how nice and fat my A is. Ah, ah. Oopsies, that A got really big. He's above the dotted line, so I just cross him out and I try again. No big deal. Ah, ah. Ah, ah. And just double check that you're starting at 2 o'clock for every single one. So if you are not done with the end of the line, go ahead and push pause now. If you are done, we're going to go to the next sound. The next sound is g, j. Say it with me. G, j. Same thing as the A, starting at 2 o'clock, up to the dotted line, around, back up to 2 o'clock, but you're going to pull straight through that bottom line and go around the bottom of the clock on that next line. That tail is sitting on that next line, and that is g, j. Doing it again. Nice big clock letter, pull down and go around the bottom of that clock. G, j. G, j. And if you mess up, it's okay. You just cross it off, double checking that your G does not go above the dotted line. If it does, just cross it off and try it again. Make sure this bottom part of the G does not go below, it doesn't hang down. And make sure the tail is resting right on that next line. G, j. If you've gotten to the end of the line like me, we can go on to the next one. If not, go ahead and just push pause real quick. Finish your G's and then join us again. So the next sound is ah, oh, oo. Say it with me. Ah, oh, oo. Go ahead and start writing that letter. Do you remember what that letter is? Ah, oh, oo. That letter is an O. So starting at 2 o'clock, around the clock, back up to 2 o'clock. Did you know that that letter was an O? Double checking that you're not going above the dotted line or below that baseline. And if you do, you just simply cross it off like, oh my goodness, that one went below the baseline. So I just cross it off and I just try again. That's what we're doing here is we're practicing our letters, making him nice and fat. Whoops, that one went below the dotted line again. That's 2 mistakes, no big deal. Going from 2 o'clock, making him nice and fat, stopping at 2 o'clock again. All right. If you have gotten to the end of the line, we're going to continue on. If not, go ahead and push pause. The next sound is qu. And the rule is you never see a Q without a U. Go ahead and say it with me. Qu. Go ahead and write it. Starting at 2 o'clock, around the clock, back up to 2, pull straight down to that next line and a very pointy tail. Then we start at that midpoint again, around the bottom of the clock, back up to the midpoint and pull straight down. We have a tiny little tent there. They sit right next to each other because they're friends. They don't want to go anywhere without the other one. You never see a Q without a U. I'm going to do a space here, so I want to make sure that you can see the difference between this QU and this next one. Starting at 2 o'clock, around the clock, back up to 2, pull straight down and a pointy tail. Around the bottom of the clock and pull straight down with a little tent. And I say qua, qua. And you never see a Q without a U. Qua. You never see a Q without a U. I think that my QUs look pretty good this time. So if you have not gotten to the end of the line, go ahead and push pause now. And if you have gotten to the end of the line, then we are going to go to the next sound. The next sound is B. Say it with me. B. Now this one, I know that this one's a B because when I have a B, I always start with the stick. I pull straight down, trace it back up. You're going to go around that clock and give it a tuck. Straight down, back up, around the clock, and give it a tuck. I know the difference between a B and a D because a B starts with the stick. Down, around the clock, give it a tuck. Down, around the clock, give it a tuck. And make sure it doesn't hang down below this baseline and it doesn't go above that dotted line. If it does, you just cross it off and just try again. That's what we're practicing today. B. That one goes above the midpoint a little bit, or that dotted line, so I'm just going to cross that one off and try it again. B. If you've gotten to the end of the line, continue with me. If you haven't yet, that's okay. Keep working. Go ahead and pause this video real quick. Okay, so our next sound is D. Now I know the difference between my B's and D's because on a D, we start with the clock letter. Starting at 2, around the clock, all the way up to the top, all the way down to that baseline, and that has a tiny tent. D. Starting at 2, around, up, and down. Oops, that one has a little space there, so I'm just going to try that one again. Around, up, and down. And I say D. Around, up, and down. And just make sure that it doesn't go above the dotted line and doesn't go below the baseline. Around, up, and down. Around, up, and down. I think I can fit one more. Around, up, and down. If you have not gotten to the end of the line, go ahead and pause the video now. If you have, we're going to continue the next letter. The next sound is S, Z. Say it with me. S, Z. Now this one's a little bit tricky because you kind of have to do a lot in between these two lines. So remember, starting at 2 o'clock, over the top of the clock, diagonal under the bottom of the clock. Making sure it doesn't go over that dotted line and doesn't go below the baseline. It's a little bit tricky because there's a lot of lines in there. Over the top, diagonal, around the bottom. Over the top, diagonal, around the bottom. And we say S, Z, S, Z, S, Z, S, Z. So go ahead and finish those all the way across. If you're not done, go ahead and push pause and finish that line. Okay, moving on. We're going to do our new sound. Our new sound, remember, is E. Say it with me. E. Now there's a specific way that I want you to write this, and seeing as it's the first time, I want you to wait and watch me first. So on an E, we actually don't start at the middle line or the base line or the top line. You have to start, if this is your middle line and this is the bottom line, you need to start in the middle of those two. So an E can be kind of tricky, and I just want you to be patient and keep practicing. So what you want to do is you're going to draw a line straight across in halfway in between that middle point and that bottom line. You're going to go up, touch around the clock, touch that middle point, and around the baseline. You almost are going to do a whole O, but it's kind of like the C where there's a little hole there. So let's try it again. We go straight, oops, don't pick up your pencil, around and stop at about 4 o'clock. What you really want to make sure is that this is pointy. We are not doing any curly E's like that. We really want a point right there. Like if you touched it, just like the Q, how we touch this Q and we go, ouch! Same thing down here. If you touch that E, ouch! It's going to be super pointy. So straight across and around the clock. Straight across and around the clock. Straight across, up and around. So we go E. E. Just try your best on that one, friends. That one's always a super duper tricky one, and it's your very first day doing it. So just do your personal best. If you mess up, just cross it off and try again. And we'll just keep trying that one tomorrow too. So don't worry about it. If you are not to the end of the line, go ahead and push pause. If you are to the end of the line, we are going to write a couple of words. We're going to focus on the ed family today. So I want you to leave a little bit of a space, and we're going to write the sound ed, which is E-D. And we know how to write both of those letters. So go ahead and write E-D. We're going to change the word ed into the word bed. So what letter do we need to put in the front to change the word ed into the word bed? I know. Bed. That's a B. So I'm going to start with my stick. Pull straight down. Trace it up around the clock and tuck. So this is the word bed. Let's sound it out together. B-E-D. Bed. Now if we have the word bed, what if I change the first letter to, let's see if I have it in here when I change it to. I think I'm going to change it to a nonsense word. Remember we talked about nonsense words the other day. You can still sound it out, but it's not actually a real word. So I would like you to change the B to a G. So if we put a G here, g, and we have the ED, sometimes the E makes the G say J. We'll leave it as G today. This is going to be a crazy word, you guys. Okay, let's sound this out. It could be two different things. That's why sometimes we need to flip the sound. The first sound of G would be G. Then we have D. Good. Ged. That's a silly word. What if we flip the G to a J sound? Because there is an E here. Maybe he's going to scare him. So instead of G, we have J. Ed. J. Ed. Jed. I actually know somebody named Jed. That could be a name, although it's not normally spelled that way. But Jed. Nice job, friends. Okay, let's try one more. Let's change the G to an S. The G to an S. So we're going to have S. And then we have our ed. Ed. Go ahead and write that. And we are going to sound it out together. So we have S. Ed. Do it again. S. Ed. Let's get our motors running. Said. Try it again with your motors running. Said. Oh, that sounds like the word said. Like I said I am hungry. You would be right. Except said is not actually spelled that way. We spell it a different way. It's actually on your sight words. But this would be a nonsense word. It sounds like a real word, but it's a nonsense word. This is the word said, not spelled that way though. All right, friends, thanks for joining me today for Phonics. I hope you learned some great sounds. See you next time.